Did you know Abraham Lincoln created the IRS? In 1862, the United States was in big trouble. The Civil War was tearing the country apart, with families and states fighting against each other. But while everyone was focused on battles and fighting, another problem was happening in the background. The Union needed money, and fast, to pay for the war. That's where Abraham Lincoln came in. To help the Union get the money it needed, he made a big decision. He created something called the IRS, or the Internal Revenue Service. This was the start of the federal income tax. But why did Lincoln decide to tax people? How did it work back then? And how did the IRS turn into what we know today? Something that sometimes makes people feel like they're paying taxes from every direction? Stay tuned, because we're going to talk about the surprising history of the IRS and how it led to the tax system we have today. Chapter 1. The Civil War Crisis. When the Civil War began in 1861, it became clear that the Union's financial resources were no match for the demands of modern warfare. The war was costing $2 million a day, an almost unfathomable sum for the time. Supplies, weapons, food, and salaries drained the federal treasury at an alarming rate. Traditional funding sources like tariffs and loans were simply not enough. Abraham Lincoln was faced with a monumental challenge: find a way to fund the war effort or risk losing the Union entirely. His solution was both bold and innovative. On July 1, 1862, he signed the Revenue Act into law. This act not only introduced the first federal income tax, but also established the Office of the Commissioner of Internal Revenue, the foundation of what we now call the IRS. Lincoln wasn't just fighting a war on the battlefield. He was waging a war on financial instability. And in many ways, the Revenue Act was just as crucial to the Union's survival as any general or strategy. Chapter 2. How the first income tax worked. The Revenue Act of 1862 introduced a progressive income tax system, something revolutionary for its time. Citizens earning between $600 and $10,000 annually paid a 3% tax, while those making over $10,000 paid 5%. To put that in perspective, $600 back then is roughly equivalent to $18,000 today. While the rates may seem low by modern standards, they represented a significant contribution for 19th century Americans. But how did the system actually work? Unlike today's digital filing systems, the 1862 income tax relied on manual processes. The government divided the country into districts, each with its own tax collectors. These individuals were tasked with identifying taxpayers, calculating what they owed, and ensuring payments were made. Armed with ledgers and coin pouches, collectors often traveled great distances to reach remote areas. Not everyone welcomed these collectors with open arms. While some citizens saw paying the tax as a patriotic duty, others were less enthusiastic. One editorial from the time called the income tax a scheme to bankrupt the honest man. Despite these challenges, the system worked, raising over $20 million by 1863, a critical lifeline for the Union Army. Chapter 3. The IRS and the Civil War's outcome. The money raised through the Revenue Act didn't just pay for supplies, it helped the Union innovate. Funds were used to improve railroads for faster troop movement, develop better weapons, and ensure soldiers had food and medical care. The IRS, though in its infancy, played a key role in ensuring that the Union Army could continue its fight. Imagine a scenario where the Union ran out of money. Without the IRS and the funds it collected, soldiers might have gone unpaid, weapons might have been in short supply, and morale could have plummeted. Taxes, unpopular as they were, proved essential in preserving the United States. In many ways, the Revenue Act was Lincoln's secret weapon. Chapter 4. The End of the Civil War and Tax Repeal. With the war's end in 1865, the income tax had served its purpose. By 1872, it was repealed, as many Americans believed it was only meant as a temporary wartime measure. However, the infrastructure Lincoln had built, the Office of Internal Revenue, remained intact. The temporary nature of the income tax didn't last long. Just a few decades later, it would return in a permanent form thanks to the 16th Amendment. Chapter 5. The IRS and the 16th Amendment. In 1913, the 16th Amendment was ratified, granting Congress the power to levy a federal income tax without apportioning it among the states. This marked the beginning of the modern IRS and a tax system that would be here to stay. Unlike Lincoln's simple, progressive tax, The new system became increasingly complex over time. By the mid-20th century, taxes were funding everything from Social Security to large-scale infrastructure projects. The IRS grew in size and scope, handling not only income taxes but also corporate taxes, estate taxes, and more. Chapter 6, the IRS and taxes today. Fast forward to today, and the IRS is a massive institution processing hundreds of millions of returns each year. But taxes have evolved far beyond what Lincoln could have envisioned. Americans face a dizzying array of taxes, from income and property taxes to sales and capital gains taxes. On average, Americans work nearly 4 months out of the year just to pay their taxes. This complexity leaves many feeling overwhelmed and overtaxed. Critics argue that loopholes benefit the wealthy and large corporations, while ordinary citizens bear the brunt of the burden. For some, Lincoln's simple income tax seems like a relic of a much fairer system. Chapter 7. Why this matters. Lincoln's creation of the IRS was a response to a crisis, but it set the stage for a permanent system that funds the government to this day. Whether you view taxes as a necessary evil or an unjust burden, their role in shaping the nation is undeniable. Lincoln's bold decision to implement a federal income tax ensured the Union's survival, but it also left a legacy that continues to impact every American. From its humble beginnings with quills and ledgers to the high-tech algorithms of today, the IRS has come a long way. So the next time you're filing your taxes, take a moment to think about Abraham Lincoln and the monumental decision he made in 1862. Love it or hate it, the IRS is part of a story that's bigger than all of us. A story of survival, innovation, and the challenges of governing a nation. What do you think? Has the tax system gone too far? Or is it a necessary part of modern life? Let us know in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video.